When was it that I realized I wasn't attracted to living women? It really is no wonder. The odd part is how long it took me to realize it, for my childhood was iced with shows like Paranormal Witness on Sci-Fi and shows on Destination America. The YouTuber Chills was the narrator of my latter adolescence. It most certainly was not the lack of affection my most serious partner displayed, which admittedly gave me the notion that that was the default. Before Julia Patriot, I had loved living women very deeply, at least two in my life, the love which makes us more alive. But when it came time to date again, I was the one who was severely lacking in excitement and emotion. The girl I was meeting was named Julia Patriot, a blonde hotel clerk who liked baking and HGTV from her one-bedroom apartment. She had some very bad luck with dating and had become obsessed with the fantasy instead of the reality of it, and so it seemed she had already romanticized me by the time we met for coffee on a sunny morning in March. Her voice was somewhat nasally and airy, and therefore gentle sounding. It seemed to fish for my deeper and gravelly one, trying to catch something sweet for me to say. She was wearing a light blue button-down blouse. How the sunlight sent its yellow to melt on her when I brought our coffees to the table. She made me taste hers, too sweet. If we sat by the window any longer, I think the roots of her hair would have burned brown. We had been talking about romance movies and rom-coms when I veered the conversation into paranormal territory. Do I believe in ghosts? I guess I kind of do, she squeaked, eyes crawling on the cafe ceiling. I've never seen one though. Gosh, I'd be so scared. I have a friend who swears her dorm was haunted. What college? I queried. Framingham. She said the hallway outside had such a lonely feeling. Did you ever visit? I went to a party there once. She snickered and proceeded to recount the night. A recollection which was without a ghost story. The blissful flicker in her eyes was a little enticing, and perhaps I almost could have learned to love the gentle embers in her eyes, and how they seemed to be effects of her voice. But I know my eyes were stalwart with yearning. You have very intense eyes, she told me in a timid snicker. I just kind of look this way. I moped upon being pulled out of that hallway daydream. I'm sorry. Was I rambling? No, I was just listening. You have a nice voice. I've always been embarrassed of it. No, don't be. Are you just trying to flatter me? She asked, hesitant. Instead of shrugging, as was instinctive of me, I simply looked at her, just being earnest. She leaned across the table, as though attempting to shake the sunlight from herself. What's your favorite baked good? Blueberry cobbler, believe it or not. Oh, really? I nodded. Two things sprung from our coffee date. I got a job as a custodian at Framingham State University, and Julia invited me over one evening to bake blueberry cobbler with her. She laughed at my uncertainty of the directions. I just couldn't understand why the batter was poured before the blueberry pie filling. She kept laughing. It'll work, it'll work. finding much amusement in my perplexity. Me looking into a glass dish of runny beige batter and purple gunk, thinking something just wasn't right. It seemed so upside down. But it smelled good later on, and the batter rose after all. See? She cooed upon pulling it out of the oven with oversized oven mitts. She looked so cute with those on. That was the first thing I ever baked. She sounded so sweet. Really? Yes, I moped. She retrieved vanilla ice cream from the freezer. She scooped everything for me. All of it melted down past my heart, coating the crimson muscle in heaves of melted ice cream. First, she laughed because of how I got everything on my face, and then she laughed because I went in for thirds. Oh my God, I have to wipe your face again. I let her do so. For a moment, actually for those few hours in her apartment, as the sky dimmed to the same color of the blueberry filling, was I happy? She certainly was, and I hadn't done much at all to do so. What Saturn sunrises were in her eyes when she drew the napkin across my chin. We may as well have been in outer space. I started at Framingham, jumping into a denim-colored jumpsuit and jumping from building to building, each one being red brick in color and tall, emaciated creations of a more depressed Massachusetts. The students were cold and uncommunicative. They were ghost-like in their own way when they took aimless passage from class to class. I was the most alive one there. I poked around, asking faculty questions, which would hopefully lead to the explanation, and therefore an idea of which building had the haunted hallway. I actually got into a rhythm before finally uncovering the exact location of the hallway. It was in one of the buildings on the perimeter of the university. It was more so a building for dorms instead of classrooms, and it had a view of the ordinary life outside, a view of the highway and traffic lights outside. So I made it a habit of mopping in that building. I even overheard a story about a girl who saw an apparition in the elevator, but she had been coming back wasted from a party. If my father's cruise ship story is true, then the inebriated are more perceptible to paranormal activity. But I was stone cold sober every day while I was there, despite the source of nips and selters about campus. Was it unfair to Julia that my shifts at Framingham thrilled me more than our time together? She was there full body while we watched movies together, while she dabbed her eyes with a tissue and I remained unmoved during sad romantic movies. But also, why did I maintain the budding of a relationship with her? She was pretty and nice, but I so preferred the possibility of seeing a female specter passing in and out of walls as opposed to the stability I was finding in Julia. She was light and good, bright in complexion, an optimist who refused to let her own shy meekness be anything other than manners. But I wanted to see the hospital gown adorning woman, the Victorian dressed woman, the forlorn woman whose forlorn expression would happen upon me. Julia made an effort to look beautiful, while the dead girls I dreamed of had no way of hiding their pallor with blush. I wanted a veiny purple eyeshadow, as opposed to Julia's warm and sleepy eyes, which glowed ever so subtly one morning when I went over for pancakes. I appreciated her ponytails, her messy bun, but I wanted the long and matted black hair, the dilapidated beehive of a girl who perished in a 1950s motormobile accident. I suppose Julia mistook my aloofness and lack of affection for actual affection, for she had dated worser men than I. She was thankful for my company, and she smiled all the while, having no idea about how I walked the cemetery the night before. We progressed much slower than ordinary couples. We didn't even kiss until June, while our first date had been in March. My grandfather clock heartbeat donged when we kissed in her apartment. Her plush and pressing lips had a warming effect. And for the moment, when we woke up from our kiss, I must have lost belief in any kind of purgatory at all. How timidly I looked at her when I realized she was alive, and all she did was smile and giggle. I don't know why she didn't tell me for so long, but apparently one of the rooms at the hotel she worked at was haunted. I called out of work and drove to the hotel the next day. She got someone to cover for her at the front desk while she escorted me to the 3rd floor. It's vacant for now. She used a master key and led me into the room. She turned the lights on. It was unassuming. 2 beds, blank television, mini fridge, drawn curtain. It had that vacation-style sadness all about it, but I didn't sense anything. I turned to her and smiled. "Can I stay here?" Why did she look uncertain? "You really want to stay here?" I nodded, going over to smooth my hand over the bed. I was gonna see if you wanted to sleep over. "We can another night," I said. "So, what do you know about this room?" Caution stole her usual delightful tone, and she sounded so uncomfortable. Some man bought a prostitute and murdered her here years ago. Long ago. I don't know, honey. It was before I started. Who's been working here the longest? Joe in maintenance. Why? Just curious, I moped. "Do you want me to stay with you in here tonight then?" No, I hadn't realized how quickly I had said it, and I didn't notice it until I turned around and saw how hard she was trying not to appear discouraged. She swallowed, almost nodded, and said, Okay, you can come book this room downstairs now." We did so. I drove home, got my toothbrush and stuff, and returned to room 14 on the 3rd floor, where I spent an uneventful night waiting for an apparition pass. I expected to hear cheap jewelry jingle or hear someone crying in the bathroom, while Julia was probably crying alone in her apartment. I didn't know it then, but she told me so a couple days later. "I cried at how you treated me," I remember her saying. I apologized sincerely, but I didn't change. My condition only worsened as I started reading obituaries. You really like the paper, huh? She asked one morning while making coffee. Oh, I like keeping up to date, I said, carefully flipping to the homes for sale page. Feels more vintage checking Zillow, I said, matter-of-factly, masking the disappointment I had felt upon seeing only elderly ladies in the obituary section. No smiling college cheerleader who'd show me her frostbitten frown in the afterlife. See, I like the idea of dead girls because I like the idea of them breaking the rules of the afterlife for me, breaking the veil for me, interrupting their aimless ghost chores to make an effort in haunting me. I wanted to surprise one by making it known I appreciated them despite being dead. I could distract them from their yearning for life with a yearning for myself, their last chance at love. For this I was certain no woman would ever be able to love me like a girl who was gone could. But still, I maintained a relationship with Julia, our only intimacy having been in kissing and cuddling. Julia and I went to the beach and got ice cream one day. She asked me to rub lotion into her back, my palm dripping over her shoulder blades. It was almost a breathless moment. Was I the vulnerable one or her? She yanked me into the sea with her, despite my many protests. I could have easily pulled away, being much stronger than her. But why didn't I? Why did I let her pull me into the cold waves off of Nahant Beach? Glimpses of her cleavage soothing the same part of me which yearned so badly to see a ghost. Full-on views of her smile coming in like a medicine. I was chuckling too by the time we walked back ashore, holding hands. Madeline Brookside had died just before starting her senior year of college. The drunk driver survived, of course, as they usually do. I bought a black suit and attended the funeral, walking off and waiting for the Brookside family to leave. They had gotten a special tombstone with Madeline's face engraved into the stone. I crept over to admire her before Mrs. Brookside popped up with flying fists upon mistaking me for the drunk driver coming to pay his respects. I crept over to admire her before Mrs. Brookside popped up with flying fists upon mistaking me for the drunk driver coming to pay his respects. I just barely managed to escape, being a bit more athletic than Mrs. Brookside. You could run away with me, Maddie, I whispered to the storm clouds gathering in the sky while I sought shelter behind the cemetery wall. Did this secret weigh on me, conflict me? No, I was shameless. I only ever felt bad when Julia cried. Why do you do all these things without me? She pleaded one rainy afternoon. I hate myself for how nonchalant and unbothered I was. As if she thought it would repair things. Julia attempted to initiate intimacy. Oh, but it didn't fix me at all. I was so thankless, ungrateful. I wanted the twilight when I had the day. Finally, I saw my first ever ghost that September while going on a late-night drive through Seekonk. It had either been a genuine ghost stalking the side of the road or some strange lady going for a walk at a very odd time. Being alone, I reversed immediately and saw that there was nobody there. I got out of my car and looked out into the woods, casting my phone flashlight into the trees, seeing no one. I even took multiple pictures with the flash on, just in case. I introduced myself to whoever had fled into the woods. I invited them into my car, even opening up the passenger side door for them. Oh, but then I got a crush on one ghost down in Fall River. The family couldn't bear to live in the house anymore, so I bought it. Julia was distraught with how I had decided to move somewhere so far away. You have to understand, I forget the details of the ghost in the house in Fall River, for my purchasing of the house was so near to the tragedy, which flipped my spectral sexuality on its head. The tragedy which made me realize who I truly was. I decided to visit Julia on an unusually warm November Sunday morning. She had given me a spare key to her place. I was coming over to surprise her. I had bought ingredients to make blueberry cobbler, and I held the bag while turning the key to the door. "Good morning," I cheered, closing the door behind me. How sunny it was within the kitchen and the living room, making the small apartment feel so much like a home. It was the least haunted place I had ever known. "I got a cab for blueberry cobbler," I said, putting the bag down on the table. Julia must be sleeping, I thought. I walked down the hall and peeked into her room. Her sheets were tossed to one side of the bed. I noticed the satin top she usually slept in was at the foot of the bed, and her underpants were wrinkled up on the floor. I circled back to the kitchen, taking out my phone to call her, when I noticed a sticky note on the table. My eyes halted on it for a moment before reading. "You make me feel like I'm better off dead," she had written. I was confused, and my confusion slowed me down. What did it mean? Was it a quote from a show or something? Title of a book she wanted to read? "Julia," I called again to no response. I walked down the hallway again. I called her on my phone, but I heard her phone ringing from her bedroom, which I entered. Finally, I opened up the bathroom door, preparing myself to find her dead on the toilet, which happens more than you'd think, and I stopped. Julia was looking right at me from the bathtub. Why had she been bathing in absolute cherry red water? It had spilled over and coated the tiled floor. She was looking right at me. Blue lips, eyelids gray, not from makeup, but from the end of circulation. Her head was tilted and situated on the rim of the bathtub. Her blonde hair tied up was the last colorful thing about her, as though her hair hadn't even realized she had died yet. Her naked body was concealed absolutely by the red water. I crouched down, dipped my hand into the blood and water, and took out her hand. I felt sick and dropped her hand back into the bath. Splash! She had done it herself. Aghast, I brushed a strand of hair out from her face. but it didn't wake her up. She felt so cold. I remember how warm her lips had been, and now they looked so blue. I don't even remember calling 911. I just remember staring at her. I remember how orange her pallid body was when they took her out, how it smelled. Iron. Cold. It seemed she was fixed on me, while limp inside the paramedic's arms. What were they taking her out for? I wanted to tell them to put her back. Put her back. Put her back. I saw them scoop her out, carrying her the way I should have carried her before. Not even 1 ounce dripped from her wrist. Everything had been already drained. My irresponsible love story, punctuated with her tilted face and blue lips, was over. I went to the beach alone a week afterwards. I quit my job at Framingham. I gave up reading obituaries and frequenting cemeteries. I didn't even attend Julia's funeral. I didn't feel worthy enough. I mused upon all the times she smiled at me, despite how thankless I had been. Smiling with her hands vanished in a pair of oven mitts. My memories of when her lips were pink. I wish I had kissed her more. I wish I appreciated more. Assured her, reassured her, told her that I loved her. But every memory of us that I replay always ends in me seeing her death face again, and her notice tattooed into my heart, which hasn't any melted ice cream on it. You make me feel like I'm better off dead. I try so desperately to communicate with her in her empty apartment. The landlord is apprehensive to put it on the market because he knows the neighbors will gossip about Julia's death at any given chance to any possible tenants. I've made makeshift Ouija boards using a glass as a pointer. I've played Charlie. I've talked to the mirror in the bathroom where she bled out, but she never responds. I don't think she can respond. She must be in heaven, unable to come down and touch my cheek with her cobweb touch. But if she could, I wonder if she would respond, if she would gather her energy to show herself to me, to show that smile survives in death. She's the only dead woman I tried making contact with. I am supernaturally celibate. The landlord has asked me to clean the bathtub again because I just can't seem to get some of the blood out. I am without her. I am not at all better off without her. I hope she knows how sorry I am, how truly, absolutely sorry I am, and how I miss her. My Julia, please come. Make your presence known. Please let me know you're okay. But the other day, while I had those yellow rubber gloves on, slouching over into the tub, I realized you would never be okay. It would never be okay. I hurried out into the hallway and slumped down against the wall, not even bothering to take off my gloves as I held my face in my hands. The sunlight was trying to reach me in the hallway, only to become an ashy gray and falling color upon reaching the hallway. Maybe it was you sending that sunlight, but Julia, Why was it so gray? I'm sorry that you died. I'm sorry that the inside of your apartment is now the color of the inside of an empty skull. I can't bear to go outside and see if the waves have become the same color. It seemed the world had become smoky and shadowy because, Julia, I've realized seeing your ghost will never bring you back. The cork to the bottle of my guilt has popped. Your blood was as red as port wine. The only word to describe what I feel is eternal. Even if I see your ghost, you'll always be dead, never kissed again. And your note haunts me as though it was a message telepathically received from your pallid bathtub face. You make me feel like I'm better off dead, and I have to live with it forever, forever.